drain your energy because they frustrate you, because they are like not working the way you want, and you haven't had the opportunity to tell them. We want to have this session to facilitate it, that you are able to express what might, hold you back or not be able to be there the full 100%. You don't have to be full 100% energy for give it all the time, of course. But you can also think about it like larger than this. Like, I see patterns in like when I work that I'm doing this or that, and I think we can fix it if I maybe express it. You don't need to have the solution, but just if you talk about it, it might give others the opportunity to say like, hey, okay, I have the same thing as you, or maybe we can fix this like that. So that's the kind of thing that we want to do, that you have the space and the safety to open up and to really say the things that you want to do, that you deeply feel and that might bother you. And we're going to do that in a few rounds to do that. And we'll take a little break in between as well. And
please.
I was wondering if you could read the initial description that you put in the meetings sheet about this session, because I just thought it really helped me think about this in a unique way.
1 second. And I'm not online, so Danny is also opening.
Yeah, I got it up here. Just a second.
So this is not what we are not good at as an organization.
Yeah, it is.
We're gonna work our way there.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So the first round will be, where do we feel challenged personally? What are things that we see ourselves as unable to do as well as we'd like to? And then the second round is gonna be, what are things that we witness and see externally?
I can read this.
Please.
Sure.
What are we not good at and should improve? I'd love to have a session on what frustrates you within our organization. Yes, let's get to the elephants in the rooms and how we can get better at it. Be respectful and constructive, of course, but this is the session to vent any or all frustrations about our internal organization. I think we might even need a few of these, or do one per circle. There's a lot to discuss. Thoughts welcome.
And so that part of it, what that leads into is, as people share, you may say, wow, I really relate to that challenge, or I think I can help with that challenge. This circle and this workshop is not the time to address that. What is appropriate is to make a note that you want to follow up with that person, and that we can connect and continue to develop solutions to these frustrations.
Yeah, because we're a big group, so just know that we would love to do that, but if we don't want it to be a session that people start interrupting each other, or that we go too deep into one topic. We want to give equal opportunity to everyone to vent what they want to say. Go ahead.
So to clarify, this is about identifying tensions being defined by where we are now and the difference to where we want to be, kind of.
Let's just leave it really open.
Yeah.
What frustrates you?
The things that are in your head, that could be a frustration for you. So it's can also be, okay.
So we're gonna give 2 minutes per person. I have this little stack of hearts that represents all of our values. I'd like to pass this around as our little talking stack. It's the talking stack.
I love it.
Okay, and who would like to go first, and then we'll go around the circle.
Can you just in 2 sentences say what we're supposed to say?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll start with the first round, and that's very practical. So, go ahead, Danny.
What do you feel you are not doing doing well, personally? What is something you feel frustrated by?
And choose one thing, if possible. Don't list 15 things that you're no good at.
I'm going to give us a moment to think and set that in the middle. Okay.
I can quite openly say I'm probably not the most personable of people. Human connection, albeit a value I strive for, is not necessarily one that is a strength of mine. So, that's one thing I'm not good at.
People first write down that, or no?
No, so we're going to go all the way around the circle and everybody speak, and at the moment, at the end of it, we're going to give 2 minutes for people to write down anything that came, but when somebody's speaking. And since you had it first, I'd like you to pass it to Andre. We're going to set the timer, and when you complete, pass it to the next person.
So I think just one thing, or like how many?
Pick your
Just
thing.
one.
What
Okay.
comes from your heart?
I think when it comes to probably dealing with not planned things, like things that happen all of a sudden. I'm more like I think I like to process the things and think it through, and I get like blocked when those kind of things happen.
The milestone, do you mean?
Sorry, like.
It was a terrible joke.
Yeah, no, and
Oh.
let's try not to. You have 2 minutes, so just
Yeah.
go ahead and take the time if you want to say more.
I think sometimes I maybe undershare or undercommunicate. Like if there's like something being discussed in the channel, then I do have an opinion on it. But after the initial post on it, 3 other people have commented on it, and it's like sometimes it ends up being like I'm like thinking of how I'm gonna comment to take into account what's already been said and like respect the fact that other people have already made statements on the issue, and at the end I'm just kind of like, oh fuck it, I end up like getting distracted and not weighing in, which is not community building behavior, but I find myself doing that sometimes.
Thank you.
I definitely do not. I feel frustrated because I do not have the time to dedicate to give us as much time as I would like to, and I feel that sometimes I'm part of a community without giving to this community like much or anything at all during some period of time.
I feel when I'm working from home, all away from each other, that I sometimes tend to try to be oversensitive of other people's feeling. I'm a big pleaser, so I try to like really state things in the most positive way possible and try to be really gentle with other people's feelings, which sometimes makes me go really a lot over my boundaries of what I take and what I accept, which leads to me sometimes then being really harsh suddenly, that because I cannot take it anymore and I went so far over it that I become like rah, and comes out and I hurt people. And that's a thing, that balance is something I'm not good at just yet.
I feel like I see so many different things that I can get involved with and ways that I can contribute, that I spread myself out, trying to understand and learn or do a lot of different things, and at the end of the day or time period that I would like to have something done, I don't. So that's probably the greatest challenge that I have, that there's a lot of things that I'd like to be doing thoroughly, but instead I do a lot of things just a little bit. It doesn't feel like it's enough to actually move anything forward. So I feel like focus in my personal sphere on what I can actually be making an impact with, something that I don't do very well.
I want to speak to that also, like time prioritization, but I think probably the more interesting thing is like I think there's this territorial like piece of me that blocks me from like passing the torch on certain things, when really like it would be so helpful to myself and like having enough time to prioritize what I need to if I were just like, I don't know, training more people to do things I do or whatever. But I feel like I need to protect my place here by like keeping myself relevant in the tasks that I have and not handing them off.
Somewhere in between and both and for these, it's like time management, focus, and saying yes to too many things, just in general. I definitely do way too much of that, and especially on the time management things and prioritization. it's really hard to not just try to put out the fires that are there instead of actually looking at which fires are important, that kind of stuff. And yeah, major dilution of focus. And yeah, and trying to just put too many things in one, like this was already 4 things in one. Right? Like it's like putting too many things on top, like, and doing it all together is like a really common thing that I try to pull off, and it makes the scope too big on things.
Sure. Well, for me, it's kind of tough. I think if I want to look it from this angle with my goose given week, if I can tell it like that. I see you guys, and you're really on a flow of work, on a flow of productivity where everything matches and stuff. And so, I mean, for me, it's seeing the dynamic of things and how things flow is like really hard. I admire that, and I would like to somehow like follow that rhythm somehow. And I think that I'm doing my best, but for me, sometimes it's frustrating because also I may be my own bias of thought that I have a different things in mind which haven't like matched with the rest of the stuff, and I only realize in that point. So it hurts me a lot and like punish me also a lot of that stuff. I don't talk about that, but because I think it's like very personal stuff, but here it is. I don't know if it was a sense or
I'm just great.
Done.
It's like I feel really almost like I remember this as part of a rose meeting, and then when everybody said like what they like wish they could, and I was last to speak, and I felt like no, I'm gonna talk what I really like about us and my contribution, but I mean there is a lot of stuff I wish I was more consequential as well, but I mean these are things I heard too many things I can relate to, and on the other hand, I know that we always try to combat them or make them better or be better at things. So it's always like you can see for yourself when you were talking about this the last time if you made any improvements or not, or where did you grow or not. I do allow much more distraction in my life now, but that's because of the family situation for me. I wish I was better in the whole thing, or we were better at spontaneous collaboration of stuff. It's really hard sometimes for us to, because one guy is lunar, the other guy is solar, completely decentralized aspect. But I wish we can always grow better together and use these things here to get near.
I think for me, definitely time is probably my #1 thing. So the time that I've been able to dedicate to Giveth, I think I'm always, or at least more recently, I've had a lot of distractions that have really gotten in the way. And I also tend to be someone who sees a big cake and wants to eat it all, or think I can take on it all, but I can't. And I also think like the sort of areas that I'm responsible are sort of key areas of Giveth, so I feel a sort of sense of responsibility. I think like what Chris mentioned a few days ago, I have that same thing, like I get blocked a little bit. So if I see things going south, and I see, oh my god, I am falling behind on this, it kind of starts building its own momentum, and it's like, I'm starting to feel anxious about this, and then, oh my gosh, now we're going to have a meeting, we're going to talk about what we did, and I didn't do anything, and, you know, it kind of spirals out of control. So, so definitely that's really, it's definitely the #1 thing I would say for me. And I also, I guess, like Kai too, I have sort of distractions that are unforeseeable too, so I'll have things like something will happen at home, like it's like I intend to do something, but it's 3 o'clock and all of a sudden the kids are coming in the door. I've been asked to pick them up and I don't get back to things till 10:30 at night, or not, or I fall asleep in their bed. And then it's Saturday and then I can't do anything, and then it's Sunday and it's like, oh my god, there's a DAP meeting on Monday. So lots of stuff like that happens. So yeah, that's my thing.
For me, I think I struggle with, I'm not good at online collaboration. As soon as there's a screen between me and another person, it takes away from the productivity. And I think same problem as Don Adams over there on the forums. Like I'll see it, I'll have an opinion. It may not be well, but I mean then I have 15 other tabs open and someone messages me on Telegram and it just never happens. So yeah, online collaboration definitely something to work on.
Dean, are we going around again?
Oh, you're
So if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like for us to take just a moment, and if anybody has some burning thing that they feel like they didn't say, you have 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, what I'd like to do now is just take 2 minutes to write. If there's anything you heard from somebody that you'd like to follow up on or just reflect on to yourself to make yourself a note.
Like look at it, go maybe really with your eyes around the circle and think again, like what did that person say? Is it something like that I do too? Or is it something that I want to tell that person that could help that person?
Or buddy up with somebody,
Yeah.
accountability buddies.
Oh yeah, and remember we'll have a praise moment of like praising each other at the end. So this is also the moment if you hear something that someone is beating it themselves up, maybe write it down to like give some energy back to those people.
So I think I kind of get confused, like what do we exactly do?
You just
Reflect and write.
reflect on what you heard, and if you heard something that you have as well, or something that you want to tell that person that could support that person, you might write it down.
Okay. Just one more question, Chris. When you say like to say to someone, it's like on a general way, or is it like directly to somebody?
No, but we're probably not gonna do this in this session. And even you can do it on an individual or general. You can, and praise can always be individual as well. That's fine. Or like support can be individual, can be general. It doesn't matter. Okay, are we ready for the next round? So, what we want to do now is come to that thing of what do you feel that we are not good at. So we're gonna do the same thing. You each get 2 minutes. I actually said like pick one topic that I might have blocked some people there with the previous because that was not that important. But for this one, it is important. Like pick one thing that you believe that we are not good at. You have 2 minutes to actually clarify what you mean with that statement, because we're not going to do like clarifying questions and so on. Try to state as clearly what you believe we are not good at.
We.
Let's give it, yeah. Sorry.
And is this like the only time that we're gonna be putting ideas of what we're not good at?
No, well, we're going to do a reaction round, and if you only state one thing, that you're still like, nobody said that other thing I was thinking of, then we can do a bonus round, and we'll do another one of those.
Okay, but there's not gonna be like a lunar round of this.
Well, the lunar round is actually all stating like what you think.
Choosing one thing isn't lunar. So that's fine, it's fine. I just wanted to know.
So,
It helps
for
me know
timing,
what to
yeah.
that's interesting, because we're asking each of you to be solar so that we
Yeah.
have a lunar pool to choose from, and then we're gonna choose a couple, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah, but it's just because we want to give everyone the moment to like really express something, and you can write down by the way already too, because you might see that someone else will have picked the point you wanted to talk about. So that is one of the tips. If you see like, okay, Lorelai has for 2 minutes talked about a specific topic she thinks we're not good at, and that's what you said as well. You can decide to like add on to that if you really feel strong about that topic. If you feel she has said everything, pick the second one on your list that you want to talk about. So try to just pick one. That's the main guidance here. Another thing that can help you in this exercise is you can be frustrated with a specific person. That happens, and that's fine. But a quote I got like from Naval, if you know him on Twitter, is like praise individually, criticize generally. So try not to just say like, so Jeff has been annoying me and I need to now have a monologue about that. So try to more talk about a specific behavior. And again, like if you feel like, hey, this sounds about like not something that all of us do, you can always afterwards go up to that person and be like, were you talking about me, or like, or can I help with that frustration, whatever. So, but try to like think, and yeah, try to do that, not criticize collectively, I would say. Another tip that I wrote down here is like, which already helped me in general a lot in my life, is breathe. So if you have the impulse, it's like this comes up, breathe between the impulse and the action. Just taking a second. When you we're gonna do that, taking that breather in between, and like take that breathing moment. And try to say it in a rational way that is constructive. You can be open, you can be honest, state it with your own words, of course. I I'm not saying this to restrict you. I think those are my tips, Danny. Did you have any other ones?
No, the only other ones I guess I wanna just feel Loie's feedback there about the lunar thing. That please just speak what comes from your heart, whatever it is.
Yeah. I know that after we did this round, we're gonna try to pick about 3 that like we feel like, oh, we really need to like have a reaction round about that in the group. So just so you know, there is a way to react, but like do not use those 2 minutes to have to react on what the previous person said. That is not the idea. Come with your own thing that you believe that we're not good at, or add on to another one. Okay? So now we're gonna take 2 or 3 minutes to write down the thing that you believe, 1 or 2 things that you believe we're not good at, and then we can pick one. So take
That we're not good at. That we're not good at.
that we're not good at.
We are not.
Give it.
Yeah. As collective us rather
I
than
can
singular.
share a phrase that I wrote down is, what have we witnessed that is impacting our ability to do things well?
Everybody doing something else?
No, I'm writing feedback.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Okay. Again, we're about to start now. One more tip, like when people are saying things, and it's something that Danny said, and I will have to hold myself back for this as well. Try to not take notes on, so we're not gonna let other people react. But if it's an important thing that the person stated, we'll have again a reflection round afterwards to take your notes. So if it's really important, you'll remember it. But try to really focus on what the other person is saying so that you really hear it. So who feels like starting?
I can start.
Okay.
So I hope I say this
The value
correctly.
stack.
Thank you.
have 2 minutes.
The
Speak
Ubuntu
for the
stack, which
values.
is good because I want to say I want the Ubuntu stack. We're not so good at keeping or retaining developer engagement. Actually, we're bad at keeping that engagement of developers for, you know what I mean, I guess. Yeah, right. So we lose people that find us as developers, they leave for other projects or things very quickly. And they still like us, which is strange. So I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum, but just to think of it.
You can pass it right to Michael. What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Well, for me, I mean, the big thing is, I think, being very specific, I think we're not very good at dealing with DAP issues in a timely manner. For a whole bunch of reasons, I guess. I guess I don't need to elaborate with them. But, I mean, I just think there's, I mean, I definitely can reflect on myself to some extent, and being able to kind of cultivate and stay on top of those issues. I think we've been stressed for developer time, putting a lot of pressure on a very few individuals to kind of help us, including people that no longer work with us. And I think that causes a lot of stress, because the DApp infrastructure, even though it's beta, is actually our infrastructure that we use to operate the whole organization. So if the DApp goes down, in the worst case scenario, people don't get paid. So I think it's a very critical kind of issue for the whole organization. And then everything else, I mean, there's other related DApp kind of issues, but I thought that was sort of the most significant one. And maybe the other one is, and it sort of relates to fundraising, but I think it's broader than fundraising, but I think thinking about how Giveth can create sustainability models for itself is something that we struggle with, partially because of, our ideology of wanting to kind of change the world, not always charge for things but I think we struggle with that issue a little bit, and I think there's areas where I think we probably will brainstorm on that while we're here this week, other models and ways of thinking about that sustainability beyond just that kind of linear idea of fundraising as we're going to put in a proposal and we'll try to get money for it. I think that's something else that would, again, ease stress in the organization. So those are my two big ones.
Okay, and a reminder, try to stick to one topic.
Oh, sorry.
We might have another round.
Okay, that one's my first one.
And just to say, that was not even 2 minutes.
It
so
was
I
actually,
oh,
but I
was.
started late,
Okay.
and it was 2 minutes.
Feel free to speak fully.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say, I guess I'll choose this one because it's funny that we are a product that is trying to make the transfer of finances easier, and yet I find the transfer of finances within Giveth to be very clunky and difficult and inefficient. I think we need to decide whether we are prioritizing our development to use our tool for our purposes, or if we are developing our tool for the charity/giving purposes. If we're going with the latter, then perhaps an alternative like funding or payment or expense application would be preferable. I just find, and I think I'm a special case as well because I haven't done milestones forever and my life's been kind of crazy, but just improving that financial flow through of Giveth, and that's something I heard from multiple people way back when I first started with Giveth too, so maybe it's something to keep an eye on or consider alternatives, or just focus on what I think we've had this like dual, our product is for us and dog fooding, and that's where the dev work is going, but we kind of built it and named it and talk about it to the outside world as kind of a different tool. So just figuring out where our priority is and how we balance that.
So I think it's along the lines of balance, as Jeff says, but the way I summarised that was actually given to me earlier in the week. It's stay on your own trip but with the group. So it's a collective thing but an individual thing. It's a both and thing. So how do we align, or we're not particularly great at aligning our personal interests with leveraging the power of the group.
I think I really tried to come up, but it will be just like a little bit unfair because I don't have the full context of the. But probably a combination like something pretty similar, like, well, it's actually not similar, but I think talking about lunar and solar phases, I think finding the balance in not only like these meetings, like finding the balance on everyday life, and not only with us, but within everyone is actually important. And as I mentioned, I don't really have a full context, but I can notice, like, for example, things going like on an 80% lunar phase, and I will say I would argue that it's the execution of the things that are actually, like, it's magnificent to see the things like on paper, and now just actually building that is the very, very stressful part. And as I mentioned, probably I will have more context with more solar phases like but yeah.
Okay, well, this is one that's kind of particular to me, but maybe some of you will still be able to relate in some way. Personally, I feel like for me, I didn't feel like it was right to collect the weekly unicorn salary, because to me that sort of entails a commitment of like 30 to 40 hours a week. And I wanted to respect that, and respect where Giveth is financially, so I decided to, find a way to participate on a more task-by-task basis, which I've been doing, rather than sort of a time cycle basis, so that, I wouldn't be taking money I hadn't sort of delivered value for, and also wouldn't be putting in a bunch of work that, I wasn't getting paid for. But one thing I've run into is I do feel like there ends up being a lot of bureaucracy or kind of unpaid bureaucratic interactions that I'm asked to do or to participate in. Case in point, it's kind of hard to know what's going on without attending meetings. It's hard to stay current without, sitting in, and, even though in the meeting there may be 2 minutes of time where we're talking about something that's relevant to what I'm trying to find out about, or we may not touch on it, but, I still sort of had to attend to find out. And then it's like, if you go to a meeting, you're more likely to get, connected to projects that, necessitate you attending other meetings, or else watching threads and Riot channels to respond to conversations that got started in the meeting. It becomes like this whole thing. And basically my situation is I've been able to cut out sort of a certain amount of bandwidth and be like, this is the time per month, whatever, that I can work on Giveth stuff. And I want to spend that time like making as much impact for Giveth as I can, which if it's writing articles or like doing research or interviewing users or interviewing team members about stuff and trying to build clarity on stuff we're doing in the way forward, that's awesome. If it's sitting there mostly in a passive listening role, I don't always feel like that's it. Bureaucracy.
I feel like we're not very good at looking outside of our world, at looking at, well, we are groundbreaking by definition, and I think this is a great thing, but we shouldn't try to reinvent everything, not even donation applications. There's incredible stuff that already works, and we can model ourselves with, and we can partner with organizations that have been managing applications way before we were even born. And we are not tackling into all the knowledge of the big institutional people that have been working on changing the world way before, and they possibly have way more resources and way more expertise than we will ever have. And it's good to try to do things differently, but at some point we need to bring them in and do a sanity check of whether it makes sense the way we're doing it or not, and if maybe they have tried and they have failed. And that ties back to what some people have said before. That ties back with funding, that ties back with keeping people in, because we do things, we want to do things so new and so different that we end up creating bureaucracy that there's way more streamlined processes for, and we end up creating dApps that then have to be redone because we have prioritized, as Jeff was saying, the our internal workings instead of what our mission is trying to be. So I think we could benefit from bringing the big guys in and asking them for help and finding a collaboration with them. And we want the same at the end of the day, maybe through different ways, but we want the same.
I was gonna put the timer for myself. Okay. So I first want to say, I think, because this might be a bit hard, I think we are a group of super skilled people, really highly skilled people even. And I think even like, if you look at like on an IQ level and also like empathic level, we're way beyond the average in the world. I think that's something that's, even when I say it gives me goosebumps, I think that's something that is really special. So we have a lot of talent with us. But what I see is that some people within our organization, it's not the majority, but there are some people, for me, who take way more on their shoulders, way more weight on their shoulders than others. And that's fine. Sometimes that's a periodical thing. We all have that. But it cannot be a consistent thing. And I've seen this during this get together as well. I see this, that there are some people who do all of the work and some who also do something, but in comparison it's almost nothing. And that frustrates people. And it's painful, I think, because I witness this myself. I see when I'm in such a situation, for the people who are really putting their shoulders on the shit and getting shit done, even if it's not their specialty, they do it because it needs to get done. They focus on it and so on. Okay, shit, sorry. So I think I wanted to say, I think we need to experiment and be creative. So that's not what I'm talking about. I think we need to have an abundance mindset, but we live in a reality of scarcity, so we have to take that into account. I think the roles can help with that. But I think you need to pick up work when it needs to be done. And I think roles can help with this as well. If you see stuff that you're doing that does not directly contribute to our goals, please skip it if it's possible at some times. It's not about money for me, because this has bothered me since the beginning, since I joined Give It. It's not if we have a lot of money. I just believe in justice, and I sometimes find it injustices that some people are going big time. And it has also nothing to do with focus, with like being distracted. Everyone can be distracted, but it's about focusing on the higher thing that we want to achieve together. And if you don't see that for yourself, question yourself on that. That's the thing I want to say. And if you see that you're not in it as much as the other people are, maybe you need to move on. But I hope you won't, because you have talent. We need trust, but we also don't need to reinvent everything. I went so much over my time, so sorry nobody interrupted me.
You're the only one who can see it.
So, yeah, well, I wasn't, I couldn't see it. I was
So the thing that I wrote about is basically summed up by unclear priorities and strategic direction. Having clarity of what we're all working towards. What is the thing that we focus our attention on to fix or build, and how do we clearly see that working on that brings us closer to our goal? Having more alignment around that, which is why I thought this retreat was an important thing ultimately, because I really believe it will help with that. Yeah, I mean, I think about things in a really simple term. What's the prize? What's the next thing that we get to celebrate? How can I best throw a party for us to say, look what we did, it's awesome. So naming what we're working on and having like a tangible thing to celebrate when we have it. I would like to see more of that and contribute to having more of that. I think things that distract us from it is that major issue question or challenge question that we came up with, which is decentralization, right? The very thing we're working for inhibits us. Semantics, dismissal of the problem because it's just the problem that comes with decentralization, right? Making decisions takes time and diffuses focus because we have so many personal perspectives to collect in order to get that common ground identified, so we all feel like we're working on the same thing. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's discrimination and oppressive paradigms in this organization. Oppression lives here in Gibbeth. And I think that that's evidence of that is like that there's almost no women in this organization. There's almost no people who are like from a really like underprivileged class where they come from, right? Like I could say there's no people of color, but like obviously there are some, but like Andre, in Mexico, I imagine that you're not like underprivileged there, right? Like we don't really have people that are like where they're from, they are racially disadvantaged or probably that much financially disadvantaged or gender or like especially like transgender identities. There's like active oppression of women that has gone on in this organization, like definitely to me, like hella sexist, inappropriate comments, sexual advances, someone smacking my ass repeatedly in our meetings and in our like places that we work together, and no one saying anything about it, no one backing me up when I did have to stand up for myself. People not wanting to like draw a line and like hold a person accountable with that kind of stuff, making comments and jokes that just embody bro culture. Like there's a lot of bro culture in blockchain, and guess what? It's in Gibbeth too, and it's strong. So I think with that, like saying things like, oh, we're making the world a better place is very morally hollow. It feels like morally dirty to me in so many ways. Like I don't feel like I'm saving the world working in this organization a lot of times. There's a lack of real connection. I mean, we talk so much about like offering some technology, some platform that will like better the lives of people who are like really low in the world, right? Like third world experience is extremely impoverished, highly oppressed by their governments, and yet we have almost no real connection to those people. We're not trying to hire them. We're not trying to like invite them to focus groups to hear their opinions. We're not talking to them. So yeah, all of that feels super hollow to me. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I guess that's enough.
Chris?
Broke his
Dropping the
heart.
mic.
To choose one.
We can do another round, so don't hesitate.
It's really hard to choose, but I guess I guess I'm gonna go with, I still can't choose. I'll go with the accountability. Like, just in general, we kind of have like, it's on so many levels. I can combine some. Yes. But the key word is accountability. Like, we will decide upon a process within our organization and then not really follow through with that process and not enthusiastically like support the choices that we make. We just say, yeah, let's do it, and then it becomes bureaucracy and it's a problem. It's like, well, at least we gotta try, and then we can make a choice to change directions if we don't like that process, but we really need to just kind of like not always be questioning everything that we decide after we make a decision. And the accountability kind of also comes in this like tragedy the commons thing where it's like, yes, we will do things, we say we will do things, but then we don't, you know, and there's not really any I think
Graduated sanctions.
exactly the graduated sanctions issue, you know, there's no reason to maintain accountability, and so yeah, I mean, I think those are kind of that's the biggest one.
I have three here.
Can you pick one? You can pick one.
Yeah, I'm gonna yeah, the third one just because it haven't been mentioned before. But I think that Giveth is lacking some what is called business intelligence processes, like analyzing data, benchmarking stuff around to see what's there, and I'm looking to take decision more based on data rather than. I mean, this is awesome. But it's also part to what Lansky was saying, that we need to look for our words. If we want to change the world, I think that we are already doing a very, very good job already changing our world, ourselves and our surroundings. Well, we need to target that world there, you know? So there you need to build a bridge to the system, that system that we don't like. I think some bridges need to be open there because we need to extract value from that and do better value.
Okay. Good. Thank you, everyone. So now we've done this round.
I think.
I was stopping. Didn't you already go?
Yeah, you started, right?
I thought we made a second round.
No, but first we're gonna take a.
So
All
we
right.
have a choice point to make right now. So we have 15 minutes or 30 if we want to take advantage of that 15 minutes that we lost. We want to leave time at the end for gratitude, but we also want to either have a round right now on any of these topics that everyone feels really connected to. If there's another reaction round that we would like to do where people can speak to something that they heard. Ideally, I'd love to leave some space for that and actually go around the circle one more time in a reaction mode. Maybe from this reaction mode, we can identify some things to actually put up that we could have some small group conversations on throughout the weekend to actually maybe formulate a working group and work towards solutions on it as an outcome.
I vote reaction round, to be honest. I think already a whole lot of information has been shared.
Great. So let's go to Kai and go right around again with what you'd like to say.
Or whoever.
So the idea is mostly to react on one of the things that the people said, even if it's your own thing. Doesn't matter, but more reaction and not bringing more topics in the group. If
We
you,
can't bring more topics?
we have to choose. If we do another round
Griff
of
can bring
topics, then
another
we
topic.
cannot react. You can
So
bring-
I bring another topic while reacting to what Paul said there about
1 second, Kai. Laura has a
Sorry.
question.
If
Before we start.
we have the 30 minutes, do we get to do more topics as well as a reaction round or no?
So I'm really feeling like I kind of want to like grab new hearts and pass them out. Say anything that you guys came up with and you want to write it down and stick it up. Let's go ahead and do that because we're not going to get to everything in this meeting, but we got to dig some stuff out and
Yeah.
really feel into what we feel is at the heart of these challenges. So yeah, we're gonna do our reaction to what's already been voiced, but let's pass around the hearts and anything that you are hearing that you would like to follow up or idea. Maybe we put all that up there.
Or like also new topics?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
for
mean,
sure.
like new topics as you're hearing this.
We're gonna say this in the end as well, just so you know. So imagine that you have a new topic. We're gonna say some tips at the end, like how you can actually also talk to some specific people or have like a small group on a new topic. Like, let's keep the discussion going for sure. That's the
Can you break those hearts into?
I sure can. I was already writing yours though, but
Oh yeah,
Okay.
thanks, buddy.
But also, like, so for this reaction round, like, also try to not write too much and also really listen to the other people reacting. So we have time for 2 minutes each again?
I totally think we do, yeah.
Okay. So, Kai, I interrupted you. You wanted to start reacting to something.
It's gonna.
Yeah,
it's
I
okay.
mean,
Are we focused again, guys? Okay, Kai, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to react to many things, but it's not possible. I think all these points are very important. I'm not gonna react to Paul's thing. I want to react to Lois' thing, which is I mean, you've touched on many points actually. So I do hope that like I do not you get backup or whatever, like, and visibility, and like we have visibility for these kind of things. Like if something happens here at the communal level. As for the integrative thing, I think we are just very open to whoever comes, and we did not invite them like here now, but like in a wider circle, there's like there's the Iraqis, you know, and they come from a very repressed
Iranians.
point.
Iranians.
Did you say Iraqis? Iranians, sorry, yeah. If it, so I would love if we had more people from really all over the world. Our focus is very much Europe and Africa and America. See, I think in South Africa and Central America, man, and there we seem to have more ties. I mean, with you guys in Mexico, and there was even more with like also Bernd, who I consider to be also part of this with the LATAM thing. So I do think that there's some geopolitical stuff also where it's like easier to have connections here and there. It's very like connections with Africa are culturally hard, so it would be great to enforce them. And when we talk about minorities, I really feel that it's very hard or it's like a strange thing that if you are in a minority, sort of to have a skill and the knowledge of a very specialized thing, like to meet all those points is crazy. But there are people who are grouping or like really working in that direction, because I think that's just a large field that needs engagement by itself, because if you leave it to the natural order of things, it's hard to match. But there are some people in the space that I met in Berlin, for example, who work on like more this inclusion side. What is that?
That your time is up.
No, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, I thought Lois' comments was the most important and maybe slightly shocking too. Not slightly shocking, shocking. But also on the lesser shocking points, I think I've felt the same way right from the beginning about people of color and minority and women. It's something I've always thought about, and I think it even touches on Lansky's point a little bit too about involving the broader development community in Negivith. I think there's a lot to a knowledge there that we could tap into. On Gustavo's points, business intelligence, love that, and especially analyzing data. I think we have a lot of data in Giveth and a lot of data in the DAP that probably not even pulling out that could probably help to understand what we're doing better that we're not tapping into. The other bit, and then Adam and Jeff's point kind of related to me too very much on the whole issue of not charging for time when you don't feel like you're contributing, and Jeff's on the payments. So yeah, that's really, I mean, I love what everybody said. I just thought, my gosh, you guys really nailed it. That's my reaction.
Quick reaction to what Lansky said. Been working on solving those problems in the real world for a long time, are coming up with different ways or running into different issues that we don't know about. So I think it would be really important to integrate with real world organizations who do this same work, which I think we're keying into, but we need to do more of it. And that kind of ties in with Lorelei as well, where we are building this technology for, you know, disadvantaged communities who are not sitting at the table being able to discuss how that development is going. My question to that is, how do we get them here? And I think Kai mentioned, you know, nobody here was specifically invited, everyone just kind of found their way here, I mean, probably for the most part. And how do we extend that invitation and make sure that these voices and ethnicities, or, you know, not specifically, but groups are represented when we're building this kind of technology, because it is important that they're there from the get-go. And those were the two kind of main points that I had a response to.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear Loie's stories, but also I pretty much want to second everything Michael said in that regard. So there's not a lot of new stuff to be addressed there. I think, you know, prerequisite diversity, I've said the term a billion times, because it's just the selection process, and, you know, having lots and lots of options is never a bad thing. So I'd like to see more diversity of opinions, etc. But I think that, as Jeff is kind of tying in, comes with scale as we get outside of the blockchain space a bit, because right now we're in a very specialist niche, which is 90% white male, etc. And the sample here is probably more diverse than most of blockchain, which is a plus. Not anywhere near where we should be, but it's a plus. Speaking to Gustavo's things, the data, I want to get on that personally, so that sounds cool. Yeah, don't have much to say. We're on the right path, I think, slowly.
I think I will have to agree with the last thing you said. I think this is a great opportunity to grow, and it's not that bad. I think what has been mentioned, like probably some things could have been more emotional than it could have been, because that's the way it is, but there's always reality in that's the way people say the words that they say, of course. And I think it's an invitation for everyone to just digest everything that everyone said in a personal way, because it's a good opportunity to grow, especially hearing some very critical stories around the. I mean, it's I think those are points that are really key, valuable for the development of. Because development, I think it's not only mentally but physically, and I mean the opposite way. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, also the data thing is great.
First of all, Lorelei, sorry to hear about the extent of your, the disrespect and harassment you've experienced here. And I can also think of one particular case where, I heard you sort of defending yourself against that and could have stepped in and I didn't, so sorry specifically for that as well. But I think that the larger point you made about inclusion, like Jeff, I kind of see a connection between that and what Lansky was talking about, that there really is like a pretty obvious divide between Giveth and the real world. And there, it plays out in terms of, as an organization, who actually is Giveth, which is what Lorelei was talking about. It plays out, as Lansky was saying, in terms of our dogma around, only engaging with certain kinds of players or certain kinds of solutions. And yeah, I mean, I think we all, getting back to this word that I think we may have abandoned earlier, we all do care about impact. And the less distance there is between us and the real world, the more chance there is for impact. So that's a big takeaway for me from this conversation, I think.
Very good points from everybody. I like, well, I completely agree with Lorelei that we have an underrepresentation of certain members in the table, but also what Josh has pointed out is that we are in a world that is heavily dominated by white males that have had enough money to go to coding school and they have a technical background and they are engineers or people that have been working at the places and these there are ways to bring people in. We could, for example, we could get the Iranians, as you said, we could get Paslar and we could get Mali here on a grant, for example. But these things need money. To be able to give them a grant, we need money to give grants. And that ties with, before starting spending money on getting people, we should start knowing what is the people that are going to give them the maximum value for the problems that we want to solve. For example, we have to admit, or we have to consider that I have many friends here in Barcelona who are part of the LGBT LGBTQ community, and I would I didn't think about inviting them here because they have their own wars, they have their own fights, and this is not theirs. When we solve the problem, when we have a platform that's super inclusive and everybody can use, they will use it to fundraise money for their projects. But right now, I don't think it's their fight. And this is not criticism to what Lorelei said, but actually the opposite. It's we need to get our shit together so they can use it. And to go back to the point, we need business intelligence. We need to decide whether we want to make the DApp for them or for us, and these things need to be decided here by us and not by other communities, and then it's when they can benefit.
Can I just tack something onto the end of that? Because I feel like, yeah, with resonance with what you said, that if we do decide that we're building for other people, including those people in the design conversation, it not just being an internal, like we internally decide.
And Lorelei said it herself, focus groups are an extremely powerful tool.
Okay, and sorry,
yeah.
like,
breaking format.
That's we can discuss further afterwards for sure. Sorry.
And put it on a heart.
Yeah, put it on a heart. Okay, sure. Okay, so I'm gonna write because I read what I wrote to save my time.
Yeah.
So first to the thing that Lansky said, I agree. I actually even responded to something that Griff responded to on Twitter as well. It's like we are now a bunch of white dudes, but that's like the result of a broken system of which we come out of. Like, let's build a better system so that we can be more inclusive in the future. But now you need to also just say that you need to focus on the people who at this moment have the skills to build this the most efficiently with the budget that we have available. So that might be some exclusive in some ways, but like we need to build this, and some people have more skills at this point, but we need to enable them to build the skills for the future. The thing you said that everyone a bit reacted to, the romance thing, I heard after the fact what happened there. I don't think I ever witnessed this. I did mention like the bro culture and me being gay and all those things. Like I felt personally very much excluded and offended by it at sometimes, but I feel that I don't feel that anymore personally. I think I don't feel it. If you still do that, we need to see how we can fix that. Then the second thing, accountability. It's like the same thing that Griff said. That I think that is very much linked to what I said. So I feel it like that. I think the meeting that we're gonna have after this one might help about like that I wanted to do is like go through all the roles and make sure that now that we have our goals in our head, that we really make sure whatever you do, that it's focused on one of our goals and that it's defined in your role. If it's not, people should speak up and say, why are you doing this? We have then an objective system to tell them without like saying you shouldn't be doing this, rather say, I don't see this in your role, maybe you should add it, or split up your role so that it makes sense that you're doing this. Data point, gather data, I think it makes sense if it's in our goals. If not, let's please not create a data task force and spend 10 hours a day on it. And
What was that? Sorry, I couldn't understand.
let's not focus on like just gathering data if it's not part of a goal that we want to attain. Like it needs to make sense, not just because we like data. It needs to get to a goal that is defined. Otherwise, we do not do it because we have limited resources.
That's no, I
why
want,
you use data.
Well, yeah.
see, the point was make use of data to reach those goals.
It's
Yeah.
a circular
That's
thing.
my only point. Is like think first why you want to gather data. You can get lots
Is
of
there
data.
a point to challenge this? Because I think that's extremely limiting.
Let's discuss afterwards. I would say I give it to Danny.
Put it on a heart.
Yeah.
Whatever I was gonna say, just, it's all gone. So I'm just gonna say what I'm thinking about right now based on what I heard from everyone. There's some things that I've really wanted to do and felt myself really blocked from doing. And one of them is just being like a very vocal evangelist. Like I want to be singing to everybody I know in every network where I exist about what I'm working on. And I don't, and so I stop and think, why don't I? And one of them is, I think, what we're talking about right now, which came from what Lorelei said, but also what everybody else says, is right now, everything that Giveth is working on in the cryptocurrency and the blockchain space, while we know that it has this incredible power to alter how people have access to the things they need for a healthy, thriving lifestyle. We know that it can deliver that. We know we're not near it yet, and that we have this other work to do to get it ready so those who want to use it can have access to it and can use it easily. But right now, the people who have the ability to do that are the ones who don't have to have any fear about survival. Right? It's those of us who don't have to worry about where we're going to put our head and where we're going to get food for our next meal. We actually have the space to apply to learning these concepts, to documenting what we've learned and putting it into a way that makes it useful to the people who actually need it. So that we're in that space right now where those of us who can think about it can, and we want to make sure we're aligning our actions towards doing it so that, the thing that I wrote down, who do we actually think we're helping, and do they think we're actually helping them? Is the question that I feel like that comes down to, and we don't have an answer to that fully, because, you know, in my permaculture practice, we went out to these communities and met with people and said, what could we actually do to help you? You need that garden, you need clean water. Thank you for telling us, now we can build what you actually need. We don't, you know, we think we know what people need and we're gonna build it for them. But that feedback from that larger audience is really the stage where we're at right now. And I wanna feel so good about all of us and what we're doing that I can open my mouth again. That I can actually stand up and say, I fully believe in this, I fully believe in these people, and here's why I give to it, and I want you to give to it too. Because I think, that's, you know, ultimately I wanna get over that hump. Whatever is keeping me from singing about this, I'll stop. I wanna get past that.
Cool. Kai, I wanted to respond to your comment about like losing devs and not being able to retain people. I think that it relates to not having clear boundaries, no clear hiring process, no clear firing process, no clear like payment process sometimes. And I think for like, especially devs seem to be like, people who have rational brains, so I think it especially like shies them away more, like that's why there's such a high amount of that personality type leaving us. But that was a big thing on my list too, was like, we don't fire people when we probably should, and we don't really have any real hiring processes either, and just in general, like, and job security. Like, I don't think people feel job security, or like feel like they ever know their status. it limits some people from joining or retaining in our org.
Just knowing where they stand.
Yeah.
Do you feel complete?
Okay. Yeah, just on the biz analysis from Gustavo, I think it's really important. I mean, and I'm surprised it wasn't mentioned much more. It was mentioned a lot in the reaction round, but financial sustainability is like just hugely lacking. And there's probably ways to do it, but we haven't really like figured any out or put a lot of focus on it sometimes. And I think driving off of Jeff and Lansky a little bit on the like, you know, who are we trying to help and what are our goals, and I feel like our goals have kind of shifted, or our strategies have shifted back and forth. Like at the beginning, Giveth was really supposed to be like a, you know, proposal framework for DAOs and like a way to use blockchain technology to change the way donations work and build new systems, realigning incentives. And then some people came into the organization that were more just like, let's bring transparency to charity, which we just never really accomplished at all. That was one thing I think you put in too, Jeff, just like the DApp is not solving the problems it's supposed to solve. It's very clunky, and you know, we don't see, we don't actually, it seems like it'd be easy to just put out like a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet so you could actually see the ins and outs of the DApp. I mean, we don't really have transparency. We have traceable donations, and we have accountability, but we don't actually have transparency. You can't see what's happening. And so this, but to go back to where I was starting with is like, we kind of have these two directions: transparency for donations, and then like really DAO focused stuff. And I'm personally trying to bring us back to the original idea, which was, let's build something to allow the crazy power of realigning incentives in the blockchain space to interact with this, you know, more donation space, right, which has broken incentive models. It's a challenge, and it's not like, it's not really something that we can solve on our own, but if we can build a system for that, you know, unfortunately our audience when we do that is totally just white males. Like, I mean, 90% is very generous. I'd say it's more like 95. So that puts us in a tough spot on the diversity side. Okay.
Another way.
Yeah.
Well, building on top of the last two comments, I think that there is a huge opportunity there in both trying to build more transparency and engaging with developers, and thinking about bringing talents and new people from to the space, instead of the classical Solidity engineers that we want to develop the smart contract, which are really hard to catch because there are few and there is so much to do in that space. And I think that there could be an interesting opportunity to try to branch somehow the DApp, like building the analytics on what's there that you are having there, building the transparency that Griff is mentioning. So that's could be an interesting thing to think about. And then I had, this is a reaction to your comment when you were talking about distribution of weight, when to get people to get stuff done. That's a fucking pain in the ass, I know. I know, but what I wanted to comment that many times this is something that we could resolve by ourselves. I know that there is always like, well, he's not doing, and this is me who's doing the 80% of the work, but sometimes it is what it is, man. Sometimes it's about breathing, accepting, relaxing, and hoping that maybe next year or in 2 years or whatever you will be in the other side and things will be balanced somehow, no? And I know that sometimes, many times you want to react and fix the other stuff around you, but sometimes it's on you or on delegation as well.
Okay.
So it's 4:43. I think we have 2 minutes left, and the idea that we wanted to end on gratitude.
I think it's a good one to do. I was thinking let's maybe just all do a pretty quick round, like say 2 or 3 sentences. Pick just one person that you want to take a moment to praise.
That's
What
good.
do you think? Yeah?
I can't choose one.
It's
I
difficult.
was
You
just
can
gonna
praise them
say, how about we
afterwards
don't
as
have
well.
to choose?
Okay.
Can we just rattle off everybody we're grateful for or something?
Yeah. It's just gonna be longer, probably. Right? Because we still have don't forget that we still have a golden shower session where you can really still deeply praise everyone.
We're not gonna have a golden shower.
Going back to the naming conversation.
That's why I was just
Maybe
proposing.
it's better to just sit on all of this.
Guys,
you know,
this would-
and let it.
I'm okay with that
feel
too.
I'm
like-
okay
feel
with
like
that too.
I second.
Yeah, I'm also fine with that too.
Yeah.
Like,
Instead of trying to
we've
undo
got a
it,
lot of,
let's
let's sit with it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Stop in the stream.
Thank you very much, everyone.